New Providence was humanity's joke of a colony. Located on a barren ice moon orbiting a gas giant in the Kepler 442 system, it was home to exactly 847 people who were too stubborn, too broke, or too criminal to live anywhere else. The colony consisted of 12 interconnected habitat domes, a mining operation that barely broke even, and a bar called The Last Resort that served synthetic alcohol that tasted like regret. There were no military installations, no defense grid, and the only weapons were hunting rifles used to scare off the occasional ice-boring worm. Governor Patricia Hayes ran the colony with a combination of bureaucratic apathy and desperate optimism. When the Galactic Survey team had visited 3 years ago, they'd given New Providence a defense rating of 0.3 out of 10, the lowest in human space. "We're not important enough to attack," Patricia would joke. What would anyone want with ice, debt, and bad liquor? She was wrong. The Kreth Dominion was a mid-tier power in the galactic hierarchy, strong enough to bully weaker species but not strong enough to challenge the major empires. They'd been expanding aggressively, taking undefended colonies and resource-rich moons without much resistance. Commander Vekral of the Kreth assault cruiser Crimson Talon studied the scanner data with satisfaction. A human settlement with minimal defenses. 800 inhabitants. No military presence detected. Easy prey, his tactical officer agreed. Shall we demand surrender first? Why bother? Vekral's fangs showed in what passed for a Kreth smile. Humans are supposedly dangerous, but this colony is pathetic. We take it, enslave the population, strip the resources, and the Dominion gains another foothold in this sector. The other powers will complain, but by the time they respond, we'll have fortified the position. The Crimson Talon wasn't even a warship, it was a modified cargo hauler with weapons bolted on. Vekral commanded only 200 soldiers, many of them fresh recruits looking for easy conquest to pad their service records. In the mining dome of New Providence, Tommy Rodriguez, a 16-year-old who'd been born on the colony, was operating a deep-core drilling rig when the alarm sounded. Unknown vessel approaching, the computer announced in its bored monotone. Threat assessment, moderate. Recommended action, surrender immediately. Tommy frowned. The colony didn't have threat assessment protocols. That was new. And slightly alarming. In the governor's office, Patricia received the incoming transmission from the Kreth vessel. The message was simple and brutal: you have 10 minutes to evacuate to the surface. We're claiming this colony for the Kreth Dominion. Resistance will result in casualties. Patricia looked at her council, a mechanic, a bartender, a former smuggler, and a mining foreman. The ragtag government of humanity's most pathetic colony. Well, she said slowly, I guess we should respond. Patricia Hayes stared at the Kreth transmission for exactly 5 seconds before she started laughing. It wasn't a pleasant laugh, it was the sound of someone who'd been pushed too far after years of barely surviving on a frozen rock at the edge of nowhere. They want us to evacuate in 10 minutes, she announced to the council. Evacuate to where? The surface? Where it's minus 200 degrees and there's no atmosphere? Miguel Santos, the former smuggler turned maintenance chief, cracked his knuckles. So they're not even pretending to be civilized about it. Just straight up claiming we're dead or slaves. We don't have weapons, pointed out Jennifer Walsh, who ran the bar. Unless you count the hunting rifles in storage. Those won't scratch a ship's hull. Patricia pulled up the colony's schematics on her terminal. New Providence might have been a joke, but it was a joke built by humans. And humans, even the desperate ones, built things with certain considerations. Jen, you remember why we installed that secondary fusion reactor last year? Because the primary one kept failing and we needed backup power? That's what we told Earth, Patricia said, her smile turning predatory. Miguel, you remember what you helped me hide in the cargo manifests? Miguel's eyes widened. You didn't. I absolutely did. When you're the lowest priority colony in human space, nobody audits your equipment requests very carefully. Especially when you claim it's for mining operations. She opened a locked file on her terminal. The colony blueprint lit up with markers that definitely weren't there in the official records. Tommy Rodriguez burst into the office, breathing hard. "Governor. That ship is launching boarding craft. ETA 7 minutes. "Perfect," Patricia said calmly. She opened the colony-wide comm channel. "Attention New Providence. This is Governor Hayes. We are about to be attacked by aliens who think we're an easy target because we're poor and isolated. They have 7 minutes until their troops reach our domes." She paused for effect. "I'm about to show them why Earth's weakest colony is still a human colony. Everyone to emergency stations. Protocol Omega." Across the colony, 847 people stopped what they were doing. Protocol Omega wasn't in any official manual. It was something Patricia had implemented quietly, over years, with the help of people who understood that being forgotten by Earth didn't mean being defenseless. In the mining dome, Tommy didn't run to an emergency shelter. He ran to his drilling rig and started entering commands that had nothing to do with mining. In the hydroponics dome, farmers weren't evacuating, they were opening hidden panels and pulling out equipment that would make Earth's military auditors have a collective heart attack. In the last resort bar, Jennifer wasn't fleeing. She was behind the counter, activating a control panel that definitely didn't belong in a bar. Commander Vekral watched his boarding craft descend toward the colony, confident and relaxed. His soldiers would breach the domes, round up the humans, and this would be over before his lunch arrived. "Sir," his sensor operator said uncertainly. "I'm detecting power fluctuations in the colony. Multiple energy sources activating. Probably their life support systems going into emergency mode," Vekral dismissed. Humans panic easily. The first boarding craft was 60 seconds from touchdown when every dome in New Providence suddenly lit up like a small star. "Sir. Energy spike. Multiple sources. Power readings are, that's impossible." What Commander Vekral didn't know was that New Providence's mining equipment included plasma cutters powerful enough to slice through asteroids, magnetic accelerators designed to launch or into orbit, and industrial fusion reactors that could power a small city. And Governor Patricia Hayes had spent 3 years converting all of it into weapons. The colony's weak status was about to become the galaxy's most expensive miscalculation. Minute 1. The first Kreth boarding craft touched down on landing pad Alpha. 20 Kreth soldiers in assault armor poured out, weapons ready, expecting terrified colonists. Instead, they got a mining laser. Tommy Rodriguez, operating from the mining dome, had reprogrammed the ore processing laser, a tool designed to cut through solid rock, to track moving targets. The beam, invisible in the thin atmosphere, punched through the boarding craft's hull like tissue paper. The ship's reactor breached, and the explosion vaporized the landing pad. "Target eliminated," Tommy reported calmly to the emergency channel. "Who's next?" Minute 2, 3 more boarding craft approached from different vectors. The Kreth were learning, spreading out their assault. From Habitat Dome 3, a group of farmers led by old Marcus Webb activated their surprise. The irrigation system they'd installed wasn't for water, it was a network of electromagnetic rail launchers. Chunks of refined metal ore, accelerated to hypersonic speeds, tore through 2 of the approaching craft. The third craft changed course, trying to evade. Jennifer Walsh, from her bar, locked onto it with the colony's supposedly defunct point defense system. The system had been marked as broken beyond repair in maintenance logs for 2 years. It wasn't broken, it was just hidden. Automated guns emerged from concealed positions and shredded the craft's engines. The vessel spiraled into the ice below. On the crimson talon, Commander Vekral stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "What is happening? They have no defenses. Our intelligence showed." "Sir, the colony is armed. multiple weapon systems. They're using industrial equipment as weapons. How is that possible? Unknown, sir. Requesting permission to withdraw boarding forces and engage from orbit. Minute 3, Vekral made his fatal mistake. Instead of retreating, he ordered orbital bombardment. Destroy the colony from range. Show these humans what happens when they resist. The Crimson Talon rotated, bringing its main cannons to bear on New Providence. Patricia Hayes had been waiting for this. Miguel, now. Miguel Santos, from the maintenance bay, activated a system that had taken 2 years and 3/4 of the colony's black market budget to build. The secondary fusion reactor wasn't a backup power source. It was a railgun. A very, very big railgun. Built into the moon's ice using mining tunnels as structural support, the weapon was essentially a 200-meter electromagnetic tube capable of launching a projectile at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectile was a solid tungsten rod, refined from mining operations, that weighed 3 tons. The railgun fired with a thunderous crack that shook every dome in the colony. The Crimson Talon never saw it coming. The sensors barely registered the impact before the tungsten rod punched through the ship's forward section, through the bridge, through the engineering deck, and out the other side. The ship didn't explode dramatically. It just stopped. Emergency lights flickered. Atmosphere vented from a dozen hull breaches. Commander Vekral had 3 seconds to realize his catastrophic error before the bridge lost pressure. His final thought was confusion. This was supposed to be the weakest human colony. Minute 4 to 5, the Crimson Talon began tumbling, dead in space. Escape pods launched desperately. Patricia gave the order to cease fire. Humans didn't shoot survivors unless they had to. Minute 6, the emergency frequencies lit up with Kreth distress calls. Other ships in the Dominion fleet, stationed several hours away, received the impossible message: an assault cruiser had been destroyed by an unarmed mining colony. Minute 7, Patricia Hayes broadcasted on all galactic frequencies, her message simple and clear: this is New Providence Colony. We have defended ourselves against unprovoked assault. Any further attacks will be met with equal force. We may be Earth's poorest colony, but we're still human. Remember that. The transmission ended. The colony fell silent, save for the hum of the cooling railgun and the distant sound of someone cheering in the last resort. Earth's weakest colony had just won a war in 7 minutes. Patricia Hayes stood in the operations dome, watching the wreckage of the Crimson Talon tumble through space, trailing debris and frozen atmosphere. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline crash. Status report, she ordered, her voice steadier than she felt. Miguel Santos pulled up damage assessments. Landing pad Alpha is gone. Habitat Dome 6 has minor hull stress from the railgun discharge. We'll need to patch it within 24 hours. 3 people with minor injuries from the acceleration shake. No casualties on our side. And them? Unknown. Maybe 30 survivors in escape pods. They're not attempting to approach the colony. Tommy Rodriguez, still at his mining station turned weapon platform, spoke up on the comm. Governor, we're receiving multiple transmissions. Earth Command, Galactic Council, several news networks, and, holy hell, the Kreth Dominion is demanding to speak with you. Patricia closed her eyes. The 7-minute war was over. The 7-year political nightmare was just beginning. Put Earth Command through first. Admiral James Morrison's face appeared on the screen, and he looked like a man who just had his understanding of reality fundamentally challenged. Governor Hayes. Would you mind explaining how a colony with a defense rating of 0.3 just destroyed a Kreth assault cruiser? Self-defense, Admiral, Patricia replied calmly. They attacked us. We defended ourselves. With what? According to our records, you have 12 hunting rifles and a strongly worded complaint department. We got creative with our mining equipment. Morrison stared at her for a long moment. "Governor, I'm looking at sensor data that shows you fired a weapon with yield equivalent to a military-grade mass driver. That's not mining equipment." "Respectfully, Admiral, everything is mining equipment if you're determined enough. We mine ice, we mine ore, and apparently, we mine assault cruisers who make poor life choices." Behind Morrison, Patricia could hear someone laughing. The Admiral's expression suggested he was trying very hard not to join them. "Governor Hayes, you've just created a galactic incident. The Kreth Dominion is screaming about war crimes. They're demanding reparations. They attacked a civilian colony without provocation," Patricia interrupted, her voice hardening. "They told us to evacuate to an airless surface or be enslaved. We defended ourselves with whatever tools we had. If that's a war crime, then the Dominion needs better lawyers." Morrison rubbed his temples. "Stand by. The Council is convening an emergency session. Don't fire on anyone else. Please." The transmission ended. Jennifer Walsh entered the operations dome carrying 2 glasses of her worst synthetic whiskey. "You look like you need this. We just started a diplomatic nightmare." "No, we survived. The Kreth started the nightmare. We just ended it faster than anyone expected." Jennifer raised her glass. "To New Providence, the colony nobody cares about, right up until somebody tries to take it." Patricia clinked glasses and drank, wincing at the taste. "What do we do when the Council asks how a mining colony built a railgun? Tell them the truth. We're poor, not stupid. Humans have been turning farm equipment into weapons since before we invented the wheel. They're surprised a bunch of desperate colonists turned mining lasers into defense systems? They don't know much about human history." Miguel joined them, looking exhausted. "The escape pods are requesting permission to dock. The survivors need medical attention." Patricia considered. "Bring them in. Disarmed, under guard. We're not monsters. Even after they tried to kill us. Especially after. If we treat prisoners humanely, it makes their commanders look like the bad guys. Which, for the record, they are." The Kreth survivors were brought into the medical dome under the watchful eyes of colonists with hunting rifles. They looked terrified, shocked that the weakest colony had destroyed their ship so easily. One of them, a young soldier with damaged armor, stared at Tommy Rodriguez. "How? We had superior weapons, superior armor, superior numbers." Tommy shrugged. "You had superior everything except motivation. You were here for glory and resources. We were fighting for our home." The soldier had no response to that. The Galactic Council emergency session was chaos. Representatives from 80 species argued, threatened, and demanded explanations. The holographic chamber, located on the neutral station of Concordia Prime, was never designed for this level of shouting. Patricia Hayes attended via remote link from New Providence, her image projected into the center of the chamber. She wore her best jacket, which was still stained with ice moon dust, and her expression was set to politely defiant. The Kreth ambassador, a massive creature named Thrak Nor, dominated the proceedings. "This unprovoked attack on Dominion forces cannot stand. The human colony used illegal weapons to destroy a Dominion vessel engaged in legitimate territorial expansion." "Legitimate expansion?" Patricia's voice cut through the noise. "Your commander gave us 10 minutes to evacuate to a surface with no atmosphere. That's not expansion, that's extermination. You had no claim to that moon. It was unoccupied before your arrival. We've been there 7 years. We filed territorial claims with the Galactic Registry. We paid our fees. Just because we're poor doesn't mean we don't exist." The Council Arbiter, an ancient Valerian named Kaiseth, raised a crystalline wing for silence. "The facts are not in dispute. The Kreth Dominion attacked a registered colony without provocation. However, the human colony's response has raised questions. Governor Hayes, your colony was rated as having minimal defensive capabilities. How did you destroy a military vessel? Patricia smiled grimly. We're human. We improvise. That's not an answer. It's the only answer that matters. The Kreth assumed we were defenseless because we were poor. They didn't check what kind of industrial equipment we had. Mining lasers, electromagnetic or launchers, fusion reactors, we just repurposed them. Is that illegal? The chamber fell silent as legal experts frantically searched precedents. Industrial equipment wasn't classified as weapons. Using them defensively in response to an attack fell into a massive legal gray area. The colony possessed a mass driver, Thraknor accused. That's a military weapon. It's a railgun built from mining equipment, Patricia countered. We use it to launch refined ore into orbit for pickup. It's not our fault your ship was in the wrong place at the wrong time. You deliberately targeted our vessel. You deliberately attacked our home. We didn't start this fight, Ambassador. We just finished it. Counselor Morrison, representing Earth, spoke up. The Council should note that New Providence received no military aid from Earth. No weapons, no training, no support. They defended themselves with civilian equipment against military aggression. If that's a crime, then the Council is saying civilian populations have no right to self-defense. The legal implications hung in the air like a bomb. If the Council ruled against New Providence, it would essentially declare that any weak colony was fair game for stronger powers. The political ramifications would be catastrophic. Kaiseth consulted with the other arbiters. The discussion lasted 30 minutes while the galaxy waited. Finally, the ruling came. The Council finds that the Kreth Dominion initiated unprovoked aggression against a registered colony. The human colony's response, while unprecedented, falls within acceptable parameters of self-defense. The Dominion is ordered to pay reparations for damages and formally recognize human territorial claims in the Kepler 442 system. Thraknor roared in fury. This is outrageous. You're setting a precedent that any colony can arm itself. Any colony can defend itself, Kaiseth corrected coldly. There's a difference. Perhaps the Dominion should learn it before attempting further legitimate expansion. The session ended with the Kreth delegation storming out, promising retaliation. Patricia sagged in her chair, exhausted. Miguel appeared beside her. We won. We won the legal battle. Now comes the hard part, surviving the political consequences. But news was already spreading across the galaxy. Earth's weakest colony had defeated a military assault in 7 minutes using mining equipment. The story was too good not to tell. Humanity's reputation had just gotten significantly more terrifying. 3 months after the 7-minute war, New Providence was unrecognizable. The forgotten colony at the edge of nowhere had become the most famous settlement in human space. Patricia Hayes stood at the new arrivals dock, expanded from a single pad to 6, watching yet another transport ship disgorge tourists, reporters, and military analysts. Her peaceful, pathetic little colony now had a population of 2,000 and climbing. Governor Hayes. A reporter from Galactic News Network pushed through the crowd. How does it feel to be humanity's most celebrated military strategist? I'm not a military strategist. I'm a bureaucrat who got creative with mining equipment. But you defeated a military assault in 7 minutes. Yes, and I spent the next 7 months filling out incident reports. War might be hell, but the paperwork is worse. The colony had changed in other ways too. The Earth Defense Force had established a training facility nearby, officially to study human improvisation tactics, unofficially to ensure nobody attacked New Providence again. Admiral Morrison had personally overseen the installation. You've made us look simultaneously terrifying and incompetent, Morrison had told Patricia during his visit. Terrifying because you won. Incompetent because we didn't know you could win. If it helps, we didn't know either until we tried. The economic impact was extraordinary. Every piece of equipment used in the battle had become a tourist attraction. The mining laser that destroyed the first boarding craft? Tours ran hourly. The railgun? Visible through reinforced viewing windows. The last resort bar where Jennifer had coordinated point defense? You needed reservations 3 weeks in advance. Tommy Rodriguez, the 16-year-old who'd operated the mining laser, was now a minor celebrity. Universities were offering him scholarships. Military academies wanted him as an instructor. He'd turned them all down to stay on New Providence. "This is home," he'd told Patricia. "Besides, someone needs to operate the laser for the demonstrations." The demonstrations were Miguel's idea, twice-weekly shows where they activated the weapon systems, aimed safely into space, to show the galaxy what mining equipment could do. Tickets cost 100 credits. They sold out instantly. "We've gone from the poorest colony to the most profitable," Jennifer Walsh reported during a council meeting. "Last quarter's tourism revenue exceeded our last 7 years of mining income combined." "We've become a theme park," Patricia muttered. "We've become proof," Miguel corrected. "Proof that humans don't need the biggest guns or the best technology. We just need enough stubbornness and creativity to turn anything into a weapon." The galactic reaction was mixed. Smaller species saw New Providence as inspiration. If humans could defend themselves with mining equipment, maybe they could too. Larger empires saw it as a warning: underestimate humanity at your peril. The Kreth Dominion, humiliated by their defeat, had withdrawn into isolation. Their aggressive expansion had stopped entirely. No one wanted to be the next empire embarrassed by weak colonists. But not everyone was celebrating. Patricia received regular death threats from Kreth nationalists. Earth intelligence warned that revenge attacks were possible. The colony maintained constant vigilance, and the weapons system stayed active. "Do you ever regret it?" Jennifer asked Patricia one night in the bar, after most tourists had left. "We used to be anonymous. Now we're targets." Patricia looked out the dome viewport at the stars. "We were always targets. We were just too poor for anyone to bother. Now at least we can defend ourselves. And maybe, just maybe, we've made other colonies safer by showing them how to fight back." "Think we'll be attacked again?" "Probably. But next time, they'll know what they're getting into. That's something." A new transport ship appeared on the approach vector. More tourists, more reporters, more people wanting to see the colony that proved human ingenuity was more dangerous than human weapons. Patricia raised her glass of terrible synthetic whiskey. "To New Providence. We came here to escape. Now we can't even escape our own fame." Jennifer clinked glasses. "Could be worse. We could still be poor. We're still poor. We just have better PR now." They laughed, two veterans of the 7-Minute War, watching their home transform from a forgotten outpost into a symbol of human defiance. The galaxy had learned a lesson: never assume weakness equals helplessness. Especially when dealing with humans. 2 years after the 7-Minute War, Patricia Hayes stood before the Galactic Defense Symposium on Concordia Prime. The chamber was packed with military leaders, strategists, and defense ministers from across the galaxy, all gathered to hear from the woman who'd redefined asymmetric warfare. "I've been asked to explain the New Providence Doctrine," Patricia began, slightly uncomfortable in her formal Earth diplomatic uniform. "But there is no doctrine. There was just desperation, creativity, and a refusal to die quietly." She pulled up schematics of the colony's improvised weapons. "We didn't have a strategic plan. We had mining equipment and a very short deadline. The railgun was built because our ore launcher broke and Miguel thought, what if we just made it stronger? The mining laser was a defensive weapon because Tommy asked, can this track moving targets? The answer was yes, apparently. A Krillian admiral raised a crystalline appendage. But Governor, your colony's success has inspired 17 other human settlements to weaponize their industrial equipment. 3 non-human colonies have followed suit. You've started a movement. I started a panic response that worked. There's a difference. Nevertheless, the implications are profound. Military doctrine assumed that civilian colonies were defenseless assets requiring protection. New Providence proved that assumption false. Patricia nodded slowly. Because we had no choice. We couldn't afford military protection. Earth couldn't spare ships to defend every mining colony. So we either defended ourselves or accepted extinction. We chose to fight. She advanced to the next slide, comparative data on colony defenses before and after the 7-Minute War. Here's what's changed: colonies are no longer seen as soft targets. Even weak settlements might have improvised defenses. Aggressive powers think twice before attacking. The Kreth Dominion hasn't launched a single territorial expansion since they lost the Crimson Talon. Not because we're strong, because we're unpredictable. A Vextorian observer, mandibles clicking thoughtfully, spoke up. You've essentially weaponized uncertainty. Attackers can't know what they're facing until they engage. That's ingenious and terrifying. That's humanity, Patricia replied. We're a young species. We don't have the most advanced technology or the largest fleets. But we have something more dangerous: we have imagination backed by desperation. Every human colony is different. Everyone has different industrial equipment. Everyone will defend itself differently. Making them all potential threats, the Vextorian noted. Making them all poor targets. There's a difference. We don't want war. We want to be left alone to build our lives on whatever rock we've claimed. But if you push us, we'll turn our plows into swords, our mining lasers into cannons, and our ore launchers into artillery. Because that's what humans do. The symposium continued for 2 days, with military analysts dissecting every aspect of New Providence's defense. Patricia answered questions, shared technical data, and generally made everyone in the galaxy slightly more nervous about attacking human colonies. On the flight back to New Providence, Admiral Morrison joined her in the transport's observation lounge. You've become Earth's most effective deterrent, he said. Every hostile power now assumes every human colony is armed. You've bought us strategic security without firing a shot, well, after the initial shots. We got lucky, Admiral. If the Kreth had been competent, we'd have lost. But they weren't, and you didn't. That's what matters. Perception is reality in galactic politics. You've made humanity look simultaneously primitive and terrifyingly innovative. It's perfect. Patricia looked out at the stars streaming past. What happens when someone calls our bluff? When they attack a colony that doesn't have a hidden railgun? Then that colony improvises something else. You've proven the concept works. Human colonies are already sharing defensive innovations through encrypted channels. It's become a competition: who can weaponize their equipment most creatively. That's insane. That's human, Morrison smiled. Welcome to your legacy, Governor. You didn't just save one colony. You changed how the galaxy views all of us. Back on New Providence, Tommy Rodriguez was showing a group of school kids from Earth the famous mining laser. The children listened with awe as he explained how industrial equipment became a weapon. The lesson isn't about guns or violence, Tommy told them. It's about not accepting defeat. When someone says you're too weak to matter, you prove them wrong. You use what you have, you get creative, and you survive. A small girl raised her hand. Were you scared? Terrified, Tommy admitted. But I was more scared of losing my home. Fear is useful, it keeps you sharp. It makes you think. The Kreth expected us to surrender or die. We chose option 3. What's option 3? Tommy grinned. Win anyway. In the Last Resort bar, now Galaxy famous and requiring advance reservations, Jennifer Walsh served drinks to a mixed crowd of humans, aliens, military analysts, and tourists. The walls were covered with memorabilia from the 7-Minute War. A young Kreth soldier, barely old enough for military service, approached the bar nervously. "Ma'am? I wanted to apologize. For my people. For what they tried to do." Jennifer studied the young alien, seeing genuine remorse. "You weren't there. You're not responsible for what your commanders ordered. But I'm Kreth. My species tried to destroy your home. And your species learned a lesson. Sometimes that's how peace works, through harsh teachers and expensive mistakes." She poured the young Kreth a drink, non-alcoholic, in accordance with their biology. "The war's over. You're welcome here, kid. Just remember what happened and make sure your generation doesn't repeat it." As night fell on New Providence, or what passed for night on an ice moon with irregular rotation, Patricia Hayes stood on the observation deck of the governor's dome, looking out at her transformed colony. 2,000 residents now, with more arriving weekly. Economic prosperity from tourism. Military protection from Earth. Fame, security, and the grudging respect of the galaxy. They'd started as 847 forgotten people on a frozen rock, barely surviving. They'd been attacked by an empire that considered them irrelevant. And in 7 minutes, using nothing but mining equipment and human stubbornness, they'd proven that weak was just another word for underestimated. The galaxy had learned a lesson written in debris and fire: never attack Earth's weakest colony. Because if the weakest can fight like that, imagine what the strong ones can do. Patricia raised her glass to the stars, terrible synthetic whiskey that tasted like home, and smiled. "Congratulations, Kreth Dominion. You attacked Earth's weakest colony and lost in 7 minutes. That's going to haunt your military academies for generations. And humanity? Humanity just got a lot more terrifying. Welcome to the galaxy, New Providence. You saved yourselves and scared everyone else in the process. Not bad for a bunch of forgotten colonists with mining equipment."